A very good morning, my dear students. Welcome back. We'll continue the chapter Magnetism and Matter. In this continuation of the chapter, Magnetism and Matter, we'll be mostly discussing about Earth's magnetism concept today. After that, there are different types of magnetic substances: diamagnetic substances, paramagnetic substances, ferromagnetic substances. The brief introduction, this is mostly about the theoretical. The brief things related to them we will discuss. And finally, listen carefully. There is a concept called hysteresis curve. We'll be discussing about these three things mainly. Then we'll move into the chapter called electromagnetic induction. Even this chapter also we'll be discussing today. Let's move on to the Earth's magnetism. In Earth's magnetism, you should understand the basic thing first. This is what the Earth, this is a geographic north and this is the geographic south. This is the vertical plane called geographic meridian, and this is the vertical plane magnetic meridian, where this is called magnetic north and this is the magnetic south. And if you carefully see, these two planes will have an angle called 11.3 degrees. You know what is that 11.3 degrees? And that's called magnetic declination, my dear students. Magnetic declination. What is magnetic declination? So the angle between the geographic meridian and the magnetic meridian. Now, the next point is about magnetic inclination, and that is also called the very important thing. So that's called the magnetic dip, denoted with the symbol delta. That's a magnetic dip. Mostly from Earth magnetism, the questions you can expect from here, my dear students, and be careful. The questions you can expect from here, my dear students. And listen. Imagine this is the bar magnet which is kept here. This is the south pole of the bar magnet. This is the north pole of the bar magnet. How can you say this is south pole and this is north pole? Because the south pole of the magnet will be attracted towards the north pole of the geographic. And this north pole of the magnet will be attracted towards the geographic south pole. Understand? Clear? So that is the reason this is geographic north, geographic south, magnetic north, magnetic south, and this is south pole of a bar magnet and this is north pole of a bar magnet. I hope you understand, my dear students. Okay? Clear? Coming back to this, magnetic declination is done, the angle between magnetic meridian and geographic meridian, and this is important. Magnetic inclination or magnetic dip, that's very important. So listen, the important concept, how simply we will discuss, you see, and most of the students will have confusion related to this magnetic dip. They'll just simply by heart the formulas, but there's no need of doing that. Listen, this is what a rigid support, there is a thread. Imagine there is a magnet which is just attached to the thread like this. Initial position of the magnet like this, Magnet always inclined towards the earth magnetic field, because this is what the earth, and this is north pole and south pole. You see, always the magnetic field lines will be moving from north to south outside the magnet and south to north inside the magnet. This is called Earth's magnetic field. So this magnet will have a property called directive property, my dear students. And I hope you remember in the last class we have discussed about properties of a bar magnet. Attractive property it will have. It will have a directive property like that, right? It will have a dipole nature in that way. So the magnet will have a directive property. When you keep a magnet in this way, immediately it will be aligned in the direction of the Earth's magnetic field, my dear students. So this is called Earth's magnetic field direction. And at what angle it is aligned? Delta. That's called magnetic dip. What is it called? Magnetic dip. When you place a bar magnet like this, immediately it will take some particular dip and incline in the direction of Earth's magnetic field. And if you carefully see here, this is delta. This delta can be, this is the B can be resolved into two components. So this is one component and this is the another component. So this is called horizontal component, which is called a B cos delta, and this is the vertical component which is called a B sin delta, my dear students. Understand? Clear? And this B suffix H is the most important component here. So that is called horizontal component of Earth's magnetic field. Horizontal component of Earth's magnetic field. This is the most important part of this complete Earth's magnetism. Most important part. And what is the expression for this? BH is equal to B cos delta. This is the horizontal component. Listen, my dear students. This delta value, and before we go to the delta value, let's move on to this one also. So BV is equal to B sin delta. And what can I write from here? B is equal to square root BH square plus BV square. I can write it like this. And in the same way, sin delta by cos delta is tan delta. I can also write this as tan delta, which is equal to BV by BH. This is also an important equation. This is an important equation. This is an important. This is an important. Understand? Clear? Question can be asked of anything. So before we go to the concept of questions, you should understand one important and interesting thing. Imagine, my dear students, this is the equatorial region and this is the polar region. At equatorial region, the angle of dip, that means the magnetic dip, is 0 degrees. At the polars, the magnetic dip is 90 degrees. So how to remember angle of dip is 0 degrees, angle of dip is 90 degrees? How to remember? You may get a question, right? So the shortcut is that. Remember, my dear children, the shortcut is that. So here the angle of dip is nothing but the latitude. Remember like this. This angle of dip is nothing but the latitude. So remember like this. This is equal to the latitude. It's not exactly the latitude. To remember shortcut method, I'm just telling you, this angle of dip at equator is 0, the angle of dip at poles is 90 degrees. Then easy to remember, right? Okay, at equator, what happened to BH and BV? Let's find out. So BH and BV, students, BH is equal to B cos 0. Cos 0 is 1. Yes. BV, B sin 0. Sin 0 is 0. And at poles, so what is BH and BV, students? What is BH and BV? BH, B cos 90. Cos 90 is 0. Yes. BV, B sin 90. Sin 90 is 1. It's B. I hope you understand, my dear students. In this way also questions can be asked. In this way also the questions can be asked. Be careful while understanding this. So at the equator, there is only horizontal component of Earth's magnetic field. Vertical component of Earth's magnetic field is becoming 0. Whereas at the poles, the horizontal component of Earth's magnetic field is becoming 0. But the vertical component is just equal to B. Understand? Clear? So there is only vertical component at the poles. There is only horizontal component at the equator. Remember that point? Now, coming back to this and how the questions will be asked, So, for example, you take this one. The questions will be asked like this. So, BH is B by 2, which is equal to B into cos delta. What is cos delta now? What is delta now? So, B cancel. Cos delta is 1 by 2 means delta definitely it is 60 degrees. In this way questions can be asked. I hope you got it. Clear? Simple. At this particular angle, horizontal component is becoming half of the Earth's magnetic field. What is this angle? Like that question can come. Okay? Clear? Now, see, there are two formulas I'm just going to draw here. Two formulas I'm going to write, very important. Tan delta dash is equal to tan delta by cos theta. This is one formula. And other formula is cot square delta is equal to cot square delta 1 plus cot square delta 2. And coming back to the second formula, my dear students. This is the second formula. Directly it was asked in previous NEET 2009 exam. Directly it was asked. Direct. What is this called? Delta. Delta is always called a true dip. True angle of dip. That's a delta. And here delta 1 or delta 2 or delta dash. So that's called apparent dip. What is that? Apparent dip angle, and this is actual dip angle. That's called true dip. So this is called true dip. So this is called apparent dip. This is called apparent first case dip, apparent second case dip. And this is, what is this theta here? So theta is the angle between vertical plane. Theta is the angle between what? Vertical plane and magnetic meridian, my dear students. Theta is the angle between vertical plane and the magnetic meridian. Okay, I hope you understand. And sometimes you can get a question from here, yeah. Sometimes you can get a question from here, right? Sometimes. What is that? Apparent dip value they'll ask you to find out. They'll give you the actual dip. Okay, they'll give you the actual dip. Let's take it. Let's take this concept here. Like this question can be asked. Tan delta dash is equal to tan 45 divided by cos 45. Tan 45 is 1. Cos 45 is 1 by root 2. So what is the answer? Tan delta dash is equal to root 2. Like this questions can be asked. I hope you understand, my dear students. Here itself the questions also we have discussed. Here itself the numericals we have discussed, the formulas we have discussed, shortcut tricks we discussed. Complete Earth's magnetism concept is there on the board. You just have a look at it. And my dear students, and this is what the formula to be recollected. Direct question will be asked. If the question should come from here, the direct question will ask. No doubt at all. Remember the expression. Cot square delta is equal to cot square delta 1 plus cot square delta 2. Now, let me rub this and we will move to the next concept called dia, para and ferromagnetic substances, right? We are not going into the details of it because it's a more and more theoretical concept. We will discuss some important things which are required for your NEET exam. Some important things we will discuss related to diamagnetic substances, paramagnetic substances and ferromagnetic substances, right? So one by one, let us discuss. One by one, let us discuss. I hope you are understanding and listening to the class. Get ready. What are we going to do? Diamagnetic substances, paramagnetic substances and ferromagnetic substances. Remember, you're not studying these concepts first time. Right? My dear students, you are not studying these concepts first time. That's the reason I'm directly writing here. So, diamagnetic substances are feebly repelled by magnet or magnetic substances. They're just feebly repelled by magnets or magnetic substances. Whereas paramagnetic substances, my dear students, they are, listen, they are feebly attracted by magnetic substances or the magnets. And these ferromagnetic substances are strongly attracted among. These ferromagnetic substances are strongly attracted by the magnets or the magnetic substances. Okay? Clear? So one thing you should understand, my dear students, here, there is a concept called, so this is what the diamagnetic substances and the paramagnetic substances and the ferromagnetic substances. One thing you should understand in this case, relative permeability is lesser than 1. And here relative permeability is greater than 1. And relative permeability is far greater than 1. Okay? Clear? And here, and xi m. Xi is what? What is meant by xi, my dear students? Just WhatsApp me. What is meant by the xi? So don't worry. What is meant by mu and what is meant by xi, we'll be discussing soon. Just wait. But as I've told you already, this is not the first time you're learning. So that's the reason I've just discussed the things here. Okay, fine. So xi m is a very less value and it is negative. Right? And here xi m value is just less, but it is positive. And here xi m value is more and it is positive, my dear students. And remember, in case of diamagnetic, paramagnetic and ferromagnetic substances, this is enough. What is meant by mu r? Right? Now we are going to discuss. What is meant by mu r here? So mu is called permeability. Permeability. Students, look at this. This is called the ability actually. Imagine you have a magnetic substance. Imagine this is what the iron bar. So when it is kept in the magnetic field, how able this can pass through the magnetic field lines through it. That's called its property called permeability. And that permeability in a particular medium, it's mu. And this permeability in air or vacuum, it's mu naught. What is mu naught value? 4 pi into 10 raised to minus 7 Tesla meter per ampere. 4 pi into 10 raised to minus 7 Tesla meter per ampere. So now these two together, if we write mu r is equal to mu by mu naught. Mu r is equal to what? Mu by mu naught. Remember, right? I hope you understand. So these are the values. It is very important for the objective type exams. Now, coming back to this. What is xi? Xi is called, I'm writing here, xi is called susceptibility. What is that? Xi is called susceptibility. This is also the ability. Alright? This is also ability. So if the xi value is more, the particular substance will exhibit more magnetic properties. Simple. And that particular substance can be magnetized easily. Understand? So that's what I'll write here. So for example, if xi value is more for a substance, that a substance can be easily magnetized. The substance can be easily magnetized. Simple. If xi value is less, it's a vice versa. Understand? If the xi value susceptibility for a substance is more, easily it can be magnetized, and you see here, easily it can be magnetized and easily it can be demagnetized also. That is very important. Okay. So xi m is very less. It is so difficult to magnetize this material called diamagnetic substance. And it's easy to get magnetized for the paramagnetic substance. So if you have a ferromagnetic substance, your susceptibility value is so high, what happens? It can be easily, so easily can be magnetized. right? So that's the concept of dia, para and ferromagnetic substances. Okay, clear my dear students? I hope you understand. Now, before we move to the next topics, and here itself you should understand one very, 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 very important thing. How the magnets will lose their magnetism, right? On hitting the magnet, it will lose its magnetism. It's so simple, right? Listen, students. Xi m is inversely proportional to the temperature. Simple. What is Xi m? Susceptibility. So from here, what you should understand, if the temperature is increases, susceptibility of a substance will decrease. Now, I have a ferromagnetic substance. It is having the maximum susceptibility. When I increase the temperature, my dear students, when I increase the temperature, susceptibility decreases. At one point of time, the susceptibility of the ferromagnetic substance can be equal to the susceptibility of a paramagnetic substance. My dear students, I hope you got the point. My dear students, I hope you got the point. When you keep on increasing the temperature of this particular ferromagnetic substance at one particular temperature, the ferromagnetic substance susceptibility is equal to the susceptibility of the paramagnetic substance, and that is the temperature is called Curie's temperature. What is the temperature called? Curie's temperature. For example, for the iron if you take, so Curie's temperature, it is approximately 770 degrees Celsius. So, when you heat the iron up to this particular temperature, that iron is not at all a ferromagnetic substance. This is a paramagnetic substance. Clear? I hope it's very clear for students. Right? Now, so look at this. So this is what I can write Xi m1 by Xi m2 is equal to T2 by T1, where T is called absolute temperature, my dear students. You should never substitute the values in terms of degrees Celsius, because according to the experiment, they have clearly mentioned this T temperature values are absolute temperatures. The temperature must be in Kelvin only. Okay? Clear? Kelvin only. Now, for example, how the questions will be asked, let's move on. For example, so Xi m1 is equal to K. Some K. When the temperature T1 is 27 degrees Celsius. Given temperature is 27, but we should convert into the Kelvins, right? So how much it is? It's a 300 Kelvin. Understand? So susceptibility in the second case is 1 by 2K. At what temperature this happens? That's what. Simple. What is that? Xi m1, see here. Xi m1 is K by Xi m2 is 1 by 2K, which is equal to T2 divided by T1. T1 is 300 Kelvin. And what is your T2? Find out in degrees Celsius and find out in Kelvins, both. Right? Tell me and write your answer. Write your answer. So I hope you are understanding, my dear students. Write your answer here. Genuine answer here. Write your genuine answer here. Like this, the questions will be asked. And at the same time, there is a little advanced level concept is also here. Students, there is a little advanced level concept is also here. You must understand that. There is a little advanced concept is also here. You know what is that little advanced concept? Listen. So students will generally get confused between. So this is what exactly called Curie's law. This is called Curie's law. The students generally gets confused between Curie's law and Curie-Weiss law. You know what is this Curie-Weiss law? So Xi is inversely proportional to T minus Tc. What is this? This Tc is the Curie's temperature and T is the particular temperature greater than the Curie's temperature. Right? So this is the expression Curie's law is valid when the temperatures are below the Curie's temperatures. Hope you understand. This is the Curie's law to be used when the temperatures are below the Curie's temperature. When you are heating the particular iron substance more than the Curie's temperature, then the relation between temperatures and the susceptibility will become like this. Right? The relation between temperatures and the susceptibilities will become like this. No confusion at all. Will become like this. No confusions at all. Understand? Clear, students? Is it clear? Everybody? Now, see, our aim is to understand there is H bar, comma, I bar, comma, xi, comma, mu r. We are going to discuss one by one here. We are going to discuss one by one here. Simple. No doubts at all. Very simple. You know what is H bar? H bar is, here only I am writing here, magnetizing force. Look at here. H bar is what? Magnetizing force or magnetic intensity. Simple. What is that? H bar. You know this H bar is equal to, carefully observe, this H bar is equal to B bar, so divided by mu. What is that? B bar divided by mu. And here we can also write this H bar is equal to B naught bar divided by mu naught. What is B and mu naught? So you know the difference between mu and mu naught. What is B and B naught? Simple. So these are the magnetic field lines passing through air or vacuum, right? So for example, here there is a magnetic substance is kept. So outside this substance, there are field lines passing through air or vacuum, and those are B naught. And inside this magnetic substance, the magnetic field lines are passing, that's a B. I hope you understand. So this is the magnetic field inside a magnetic substance. When there is a magnetic substance is kept, the magnetic field passing through that substance is B. And without any substance, just the field lines are passing through air or vacuum. In that case, magnetic field is just B naught in air or vacuum. So remember this expression, right? So now this is the vector quantity, my dear students, and this vector quantity, and it has a unit, that's very important, and the vector quantity, and it has a unit called ampere per meter. Yeah, it has a unit called what? Ampere per meter. And you know, in case of solenoid or toroid, so B is equal to mu naught Ni. B is equal to mu naught Ni. Or imagine a magnetic substance is kept inside the solenoid or inside the toroid. In that case, it's just mu naught will become as mu, right? Now here B is equal to mu into H. Yes or no? See here, this one I can write B is equal to mu H. So mu into H, if you compare these two, this H, magnetizing force, can be written as N into I. So this is very important. Magnetizing force can also be written as N into I. No confusion. Most of the students will miss this part. Students, most of the students will miss this part, but you should not miss. Right? Clear, my dear children? So this is called magnetizing force or magnetic intensity. Magnetizing force or magnetic intensity, it's a vector quantity. Now the next one is I bar. What is I bar? What is I bar? Write it in the WhatsApp. My dear students, write it in the WhatsApp, please. What is I bar? Write it in the WhatsApp, please. What is I bar? What is I bar? You know what is I bar? Right? I bar is, listen, this I bar is intensity of magnetization. Intensity of magnetization, that's I bar. You know, this I bar is equal to magnetic moment per unit volume, and this is also a vector quantity, and here also the SI unit is ampere per meter. SI unit of H bar is ampere per meter. SI unit of I bar is also ampere per meter. Understand? So that is intensity of magnetization. So this is magnetizing force or magnetic intensity. No confusions, right? Okay, now my dear students, so there is a concept called psi, that's called magnetic susceptibility, which is equal to I bar divided by H bar. So this will have no unit and it is 100%, it's a scalar quantity. No unit and scalar, because it's just the ratio of your I bar and H bar. Okay, clear? Now, so mu r is equal to 1 plus xi m. Understand? This is a relation between relative permeability and susceptibility. And sometimes susceptibility is equal to mu r minus 1. Sometimes this also can be used to solve the numericals. This also can be used to solve the numericals, right? Some of the numericals have already mentioned in the notebooks, and in any book you take it, some different models will be there. You can go through them. Understand? Clear? Fine. Look at this. H bar, I bar, xi and mu r and xi relation. Everything is mentioned, right? So carefully go through this relation, students. This relation. Okay. Now, look at the graph. What I'm going to show you, a very important graph, and this is I and this is H. Right? We are not going into the details of that hysteresis curve. This is what? Hysteresis curve. Right? Hysteresis means observe, lagging. What is lagging? Let's discuss. Right? Hysteresis means lagging. What is lagging? Look at this. So I have a soft iron piece, for example. Magnetizing force is applied to that. So its intensity of magnetization also will improve, and slowly it goes like that. This is O and this is A. Now, when I am decreasing the H values, it comes like this. See? This is 0, 1, 2, listen. How it is increased? 0, 1, 2. How it is decreasing? You see. 2, 3, it goes like that. 4, 5, again it increases. Okay, so like that. 6, 7, 8, 2. Simple. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It goes like that. This is called hysteresis curve. And very simple here. From 2 to 3 you identify. 2 to 3. What happens? Your H values are decreasing. I value is also decreasing. But 2 to 3. At point 3, see, there is I value but H value is 0. Listen. At point 3, what happens? I value is not equal to 0 but H value is 0. And this is the concept called retentivity. What is that called? Retentivity. The same way, when H value is increasing in the negative direction like this, look at this. At this point 4, H value is not equal to 0, but at point 4, I value is becoming 0. So this is called coercivity. This is retentivity, this is coercivity. On the vertical axis you get retentivity, on horizontal axis you get coercivity. Okay? And two things, my dear students, here, two things. I is 0, H is not 0. Sorry, I is not equal to 0, but H is 0. Here, H is not equal to 0, but I is equal to 0. That's called lagging. One quantity is 0, one quantity is not equal to 0. One quantity is 0, one quantity is not equal to 0. That's called lagging. So that means hysteresis. Right? And here, area of this hysteresis curve gives you loss of energy amount. Area of the hysteresis curve. So this is what the area of the hysteresis curve. So that gives you loss of energy. Very important question. Loss of energy, right? So I have a steel body and I have an iron substance, right? Steel and iron. So steel is the substance used for making permanent magnets, because it will have high retentivity and high coercivity, students. High retentivity and high coercivity. Whereas iron will have low retentivity and low coercivity. So that's the reason we cannot make the permanent magnets with the iron piece, right? We have and we get the permanent magnets with the steel because of its high retentivity and high coercivity concept, right? Each and every part, each and every line, whatever we have written is very, 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 very important. Just have a look at it and we will be moving into the chapter called electromagnetic induction right now. We'll be moving into the chapter called electromagnetic induction right now, my dear students. Just get ready. You all know already about it. Electromagnetic induction is the production of induced EMF and induced current due to the magnetic flux change with respect to time. What is magnetic flux change? What is magnetic flux? You should know first. Like electric flux, magnetic flux we have already discussed in the previous chapter, and you can see this is the magnetic flux, which is equal to B bar dot A bar. From here also there were questions asked in the final NEET exams and KCET exams previously. So B bar dot A bar. B bar vector they'll give, A bar vector they'll give, you need to find the dot product. And how to find the dot product is very, very easy and you know that. Okay. So this, if you expand, BA cos theta, depends on the theta value, your magnetic flux value is changing, you can see. Depends on the theta value. Alright. Now, flux change is equal to delta phi. It's a change in flux. Understand? Clear? Now, Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction. So these two laws are very important, and this is important for the numerical point of view, and this is important for some theoretical questions. So what is the first law? There is a production of induced EMF as long as there is a rate of change of magnetic flux. As long as there is a rate of change of magnetic flux, there is a production of induced EMF. When induced EMF is there, automatically induced current is also will be produced. Okay? Now, what is the second Faraday's law here? This is the most important. So, induced EMF is equal to a rate of change of magnetic flux. Induced EMF is equal to rate of change of magnetic flux. For example, my dear children, for example, see this is the Faraday's second law is also called Newman's relation. No confusions, right? According to Newman's relation. Now, listen. So this negative sign indicates the direction of the induced current that will come in the Lenz's law, right? Our next upcoming topic will be Lenz's law. There you will understand it. Now, students, have a look at it carefully. So this is equal to minus d by dt of phi is BA, because let us say the maximum flux here, right? Zero flux and the minimum flux. So maximum flux condition, let's take BA. If this is the coil is having n number of turns, so that will be written as NBA. Understand? Clear? So this can be written like this, right? Now, it's called maximum, let's say, maximum condition. Otherwise, it is just NBA cos theta. Now, like these questions also will be asked, and questions were there in previous exams, KCET and NEET. What is the induced EMF when the magnetic flux is a variable with respect to time? At this particular instant, you need the magnetic sorry, you need the induced EMF. What is induced EMF? Minus d phi by dt. Minus d by dt of this phi, if you differentiate and you get d by dt of 2t square, it's a 4t plus d by dt of t, it's 1, right? So this t 2 seconds, if you substitute here, it's 8 plus 1, it's 9 volt. That's answer. Now, and one of the exams, this model question was asked. That's the reason we have discussed this blue color part now, right? To understand this model, you should know this. What is that? Listen. I is equal to E by R, because induced EMF expression you already know. I is equal to E by R, 1 by R into induced EMF expression written here. If there are number of turns n, that will be n by R into d phi by dt. This is induced current expression. And one important thing, induced current is depending on the time, my dear students. Induced current is depending on time. This induced current is depending on resistance of that particular coil, and this induced current is depending on this number of turns also. Okay, now current I can also write it as dq by dt. That's called instantaneous current. So now this dq is equal to I dt, q is equal to integral I dt. Now q is equal to, what is this q? Induced charge. What is this I? Induced current. What is this E? Induced EMF. Everything is induced. As long as there is a rate of magnetic change, that there is a rate of magnetic flux change is there, then only this induced EMF, induced current, induced charge, all the induced concepts comes there. According to first law of Faraday, as long as the rate of magnetic flux change is there, then only induced EMF production. Now, induced charge, let's see. Integral, so what is this I? This I from here you have got minus n by R into d phi by dt. So dt cancel. What is left? Minus n by R comes out, and integral d phi is phi. So the limits are phi 1 to phi 2. And induced charge expression we have got, and this is only depending on the resistance, and this is independent of the time, my dear students. So that is the most important part here. Questions can also be asked in the theoretical in this way. Questions can also be asked related to this. This is depends on the time. This is depends on the time and the resistance. This is depending only on the resistance of the coil, not the time. Okay, coming back to this. So there is a coil like this. This is connected to galvanometer, right? So imagine this is the coil where the north and south pole of a bar magnet is moving towards the coil. My dear students, listen. The magnetic field lines are moving like this. So you know outside the magnet and inside the magnet how they move. Okay. Now when this coil is moving, when this magnet is moving towards the coil like this, there is a magnetic flux change linked with the coil. There is a magnetic flux change linked with the coil. When there is a magnetic flux change with respect to time, so there is an induced EMF production. When induced EMF is produced, induced current will be there. So through this coil, when induced current is flowing, so this galvanometer will show the deflection. Okay, my dear students? Right. Listen. When this coil is moving slowly first, what happens to the induced EMF? Induced EMF is minus d phi by dt. So when it is moving slowly, means what? Time taken is very, very high. Understand? So this time is more, because that is the reason it is moving slowly. Rate of change of magnetic flux is slow. So this is slow. Understand? So this is slow, and this induced EMF will be more. Okay, induced EMF is more. And in the same way, induced current, let us see, because induced current is also depending on time, right? When it is moving slowly, time taken is very slow, and this one is slow, then current also will be more. Induced current production is also more. And here also, sorry, about the charge also let's discuss, students. Charge is independent of the time. There is no time here, so charge remains the same. Exactly reverse condition when the magnet is moving so faster like this. Time is so high, induced EMF will be decreased. The time is so high, induced the current will decrease. And the time is so high, it is independent of the time, charge will remain same. In this case and this case, it is here one case. Understand, students? And this is how the concept of the magnetic flux and rate of change of magnetic flux and induced EMF, induced current and induced charge expressions we can discuss. Now it is the time to learn Lenz's law, my dear students. It is the time to learn what Lenz's law and its applications. Let's start. I'm just rubbing it. If you want to write something, you just take the screenshot or you just pause the video and write it as early as possible. Right, students. So now the topic is that Lenz's law and its applications. Fine. Lenz's law and applications. What we should understand here is, number one, so many years this question was asked even in the JEE exams. Lenz's law is a consequence of law of conservation of energy. Lenz's law is a consequence of law of conservation of energy. Now, one more important thing. So, why the Lenz's law will be used? Lenz's law is to be used to find the direction of induced current in a circular coil. In a circular coil. Students, so if you want to understand the Lenz's law and its applications, you must remember the concept called clock face rule. You must remember the concept called what? Clock face rule. Okay, let me draw here. So this is the coil through which the current is flowing in anti-clockwise direction, and here the current is flowing in clockwise direction. Right? So according to the clock face rule, you already know this particular face of the coil behaves as a north pole and this particular face of the coil behaves as a south pole. Okay, so what can you write here? So this is called the clock face rule. Already you know, in magnetic effects of electric current we have discussed. Alright. So in magnetic effects of electric current, we have discussed the clock face rule. So remember once again, through a coil, if the current is flowing in the anti-clockwise direction, that particular face of the coil behaves as a north pole of a bar magnet. And this particular face of the coil behaves as a south pole of a bar magnet. Now let's move on. Lenz's law, which is a consequence of law of conservation of energy. Let's start. Let's begin now. Listen. So there is a simple flow chart you should understand. Then a lot of things you will understand easily. The simple flow chart. What is that? There is a magnetic flux change. Students, there is a magnetic flux change. And you know this magnetic flux change will produce induced EMF, students. And this induced EMF will produce induced current, students. And this induced current will produce induced magnetic field. See how simple we are discussing the Lenz's law. Here comes the point. You know, this induced magnetic field will always tries to oppose this magnetic flux change. For example, if this magnetic flux change is increasing, this induced magnetic field will try to decrease that magnetic flux change linked with the coil. If this particular magnetic flux change will decrease. Listen, right? If the particular magnetic flux change is decreased, this induced magnetic field will try to increase the magnetic flux change through the coil. Simple. Simple. And one more thing. This is not the first time you are learning this. This is so many number of times you are keep on learning the Lenz law. No confusions. Simple. There is a magnetic flux change. Definitely there is induced EMF is produced. When induced EMF is there, induced current will be produced. When induced current is there, induced magnetic field also will be produced. And this induced magnetic field will try to oppose the magnetic flux change. When this magnetic flux change is increases, liquid with a coil is increases, this induced magnetic field will try to decrease it. And when this magnetic flux change is decreases, and this induced magnetic field will try to increases. Right? And I'll show you with a wonderful and a beautiful example, then you will understand it 100%. So carefully look at here, my dear students. So there is a coil and a north pole of a bar magnet moving towards the coil. North pole of a bar magnet. See? When north pole of a bar magnet moving towards the coil, and this is what the magnetic field lines will be moving away from the north pole. That means they are entering into the coil. Understand? Listen, imagine this is a coil. A bar magnet is moving like this. So, magnetic field lines are entering into the coil. When the magnetic field lines are entering into the coil, listen carefully, the flux change is increasing. Flux change linked with the coil increasing. So this induced magnetic field will try to decrease the flux change. So induced EMF will be produced in the coil. Induced current will be produced in the coil. Right? Induced magnetic field will be produced in the coil. This induced magnetic field produced is try to oppose this magnetic flux change. So magnetic flux change must decrease due to Lenz law. Understand? So this magnet will increase the magnetic flux change. So this induced current will try to decrease the magnetic flux change. So magnetic flux change should decrease means from the coil magnetic field lines will come out, because from the magnetic field lines are moving into the plane. From the coil, magnetic field lines must come out of the plane. Then the net magnetic flux change will be decreased. Okay. Now, from the coil, field lines must come out. Means which pole it should be? It should be a north pole. Yes or no? So, from this magnetic field lines are coming out, means it must be the north pole. Okay, so that is what I am writing here. So this is behaving as a north pole. So that means the direction of the induced current is what? Direction of the induced current is anti-clockwise is the induced current direction, students. Anti-clockwise is the induced current direction. Okay, clear? And let's talk about one more situation. So where this is the coil, this is the south pole and the north pole. It's moving away from it. Simple. If you understand these simple cases, and the advanced cases also become very easy. These are the basics. And have a look at this. Here, south pole is moving away. Okay. How the magnetic field lines will be there from the south pole. That is important. See here. So see here, everybody. So magnetic field lines will be moving towards the south pole. Yes or no? Magnetic field line starts from north and moves towards the south pole. See this, like this. Okay. When this magnet is moving like this, what happens? So the magnetic flux change linked with the coil is decreasing. As it is moving away from the coil, number of field lines passing through the coil is decreasing. That means flux change linked with the coil is decreasing. Whatever it may be, there is a flux change, decreases. Induced EMF will produce. There is a magnetic flux change, there is induced EMF produced, and there is induced current produced, and there is induced magnetic field will be produced, students. And this magnetic field, induced magnetic field, will try to increase the flux, because initially due to the magnetic movement, magnetic flux change is decreasing. Increases. listen, increases. Magnetic flux change is increasing. Magnetic flux change is increasing means in the same direction, this coil must send magnetic fields. In the same direction, this coil must send magnetic field lines. That means this is the coil, right? Away from the coil, that means outwards, the magnetic field lines must pass through that. So when the magnetic field lines are coming out of the plane, that means the same north pole must develop here. So that means induced current is anti-clockwise. Students, induced current is what? Anti-clockwise again. Okay, so these are the two simple and the basic cases you must understand, and remember this flow chart and Lenz law. There are two important points. Now in Lenz law, there are some more applications we have to discuss. It's not at all the application. Now the applications will start now. Listen, my dear students, there is a coil, right? There is a coil, and you see a north pole is here, south pole is here, and imagine the coil is moving towards the magnet is moving towards the coil. This is the coil. Imagine it's kept in the like this, in the air like this. It is fixed like this. Imagine. So the magnet is moving towards the coil. Same situation, right? North pole is moving towards the coil. Which pole will develop here? North pole will develop here. And see, this magnet will move with the mg force downwards. Now listen carefully. Here a north pole is developed. When it is moving towards the coil, north pole will develop, and this north pole will repel. So that means there is a repulsion force here, right? There is a repulsion force here. So the net force on this will be, listen, so F is equal to mg minus repulsion force. And this net force, I can write it as mass into acceleration is equal to mg minus F repulsion. And this acceleration is equal to g minus F repulsion divided by mass. Okay. So with what acceleration this magnet will comes down? So with this acceleration, g minus F repulsion by m. So what is this g? So g value is 10 minus something. So for example, imagine this is 2. 10 minus 2, it's 8. So with what acceleration? So the magnet is moving towards the coil, 8 meter per second square. 8 meter per second square. That means less than acceleration due to gravity. So in the same way, so this magnet after some time is moving like this, right? So this is the north and this is south. So from the coil, south pole is close and it is moving away. See here. Here, south pole is here, moving away from the coil. Here, what is the pole developed here? South pole is developed here. Same here also. Because of mg, the magnet comes down and there is a repulsion force. This is south. From this end, if you see, there is a north pole is developed. From this end, if you see, or at the coil, there is a north pole is developed. The south pole and north pole will attract, right? So this is what the attraction force now. Same concept. So mg minus attraction force is equal to ma net force. So this I can write acceleration is equal to g by F attraction divided by mass. So this is also acceleration less than, this is with what acceleration it comes down? A, right? So this acceleration is lesser than acceleration due to gravity, and this acceleration is also lesser than acceleration due to gravity. I hope you understand this, my dear students. So with what acceleration, so the particular, listen, with what acceleration the magnet is coming through the coil? Less than acceleration due to gravity. Less than acceleration due to gravity. Okay, and the last application in the Lenz law we will discuss, and our next topic is motional EMF. About the motional EMF we will be learning in the next class, and let me rub this part so that the next Lenz law application can be discussed here. So that is the last concept of Lenz law. The last concept of Lenz law. The last concept of the Lenz's law. I think, get ready. So there is a coil here. Carefully observe. This is the current. So imagine this current is increasing. This current is increasing. So generally what happens? Students, generally what happens? So if this is the current carrying wire, right side of these field lines are into the plane. Left side of these field lines are out of the plane. Okay, generally I am writing. So here the field lines are out of the plane. Okay. So when current is increasing, this out of the plane magnetic flux also increases. Yes or no? Out of the plane magnetic flux linked with the coil increases. But when there is a magnetic flux change, there is induced EMF, there is induced current. That induced current will develop induced magnetic field. And what that induced magnetic field does? That induced magnetic field will try to oppose the magnetic flux change. Here the magnetic flux change is increasing outside. Now, this induced magnetic field will create a magnetic field lines which is opposing this flux change. Means inside the magnetic flux, inside the magnetic field lines it will generate. When the magnetic field lines are into the plane, and in which direction the current should move? Listen, in this direction, induced current, right? Induced current is what direction? So clockwise direction. This is induced current clockwise direction, right? When induced current is clockwise direction, this particular face of the coil behaves as a south pole of a bar magnet. This is about Lenz's law, my dear students, right? This is about what? Lenz's law. Okay, clear? And let's discuss the motional EMF part and induction, self-induction, mutual induction part, and finally alternating current chapter also will be discussed. That's a small chapter, will be discussed in tomorrow's lecture, right? Thank you so much. All the very best.